Hello, good evening. It's Friday the 17th of May, 2 days to my birthday. Cake would be very much appreciated. Dancing girls, whatever, Astons. Synthesizers, lots of synthesizers. We seem to have an awful lot at the moment that are coming out. We're going out to the world, to all of you, lovely people. Thank you so much for tuning in to this blether. Robbie, as you will probably know by now, is in Superbooth, so he's not going to be here today, although he may pop in and grace us with his presence. We have a number of different people here, though. Today we have some stalwarts, and we have some occasional waltz, and then we have some Disney waltz of some sort or another. And but we've got so many. In fact, we're going to have to cherry pick them. Yeah. I think you know where I'm going with that. And forgive me. But the thing is, we're here every Friday, as you know. And the thing that keeps us going is the fact that you tune in, join us, watch us. If you could possibly give us a like, it really helps. Comment. Say whatever you like about stuff. Say how pretty I am today. Because, really. And subscribe and share far and wide. We're building members, more and more, and it all helps keep the coffers filled up so that we can carry on delivering some fantastic content to you. Don't forget where we are, so you can like, comment and subscribe and share. And of course, we now have Patreon. Some of you used to donate through, I think it was PayPal, but we now have Patreon. So let's just try and get that up. There we go. And we'll leave the banner running as well. How about that? There we go. So yes, Patreon. You can get in there from £2. The benefits of being in Patreon, on Patreon and subscribing is anyone can view a whole bunch of stuff, but there's additional content for people that pay for access, which it's a couple of quid a month. That's the going in. You can pay more if you want, or I think even less. I can't quite remember. But it really does help keep things ticking over. And believe me, we have got so much coming up over the next few months. And of course, with Robbie away, when he comes back, I know he's been doing a lot of filming, so there'll be a lot of extra new Robbie type content on Patreon as well as here. You're going to see a load of stuff, but please do jump on if you wouldn't mind and support us if you feel worth it. You don't have to, but it would be really good. And the same thing goes, we've got YouTube as well, so let's pop that up when I can find the right. There we go. No, that's Patreon. These are all showing really weird things. We're not getting the right things here, and I don't know why. So we're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitch and Instagram. We can put that up as a ticker thing. So we're on all of the different channels. So as you can see, YouTube, Facebook, you'll find us on all of these. Well, you'll find us all over social media, Insta, Threads, and even on X, formerly known as... So there we go. And now we're joined, of course, generally by our lovely admins, one of whom isn't going to be adminning today because he's with us here helping fill a small hole, for which we're always grateful. But if you do want to ask questions in the chat on YouTube, preferably, because we'll pick that up, put a big Q in front of your question. And I know we've got quite a lot of people who are interested in what we're showing today. So put a big fat Q. We'll try and pick that up and answer as many of those as we can. And then I think we have just about dealt with all of it. So I'm just going to turn that off if I can. And I'm going to turn that off. And now I'm going to introduce some people. What about that? So to start with, there's only one man really that you can introduce in this way, which is, wait, Kid.
What?
Oh,
hello.
Me. Hello.
How you doing?
I am good, thank you. I've had one hell of a week.
Go on.
Oh, it's just one hell of a week. Yeah, look, I'll show you. See this?
Oh,
Where is it? There we go.
that's a droid.
It's a droid. And our dear little makerer made this, obviously this part, but also the case, the button, and the circuit board.
Oh, wow.
in under an hour. So
The whole lot.
Yeah, the whole thing. And we have been just making stuff all over the place. It's been mad. Laser cutting, you name it. And we are having me and Fiona are having a bit of a session this weekend where we're going to be doing some serious Eurorack designs. Which would be
Eurorack as opposed to any other kind of rack.
Eurorack is the best way to go when you're starting out, essentially.
Okay.
Yes, we'd like to build a polysynth the size of a Buick, but you can't do it every time. Do you know what I mean? It's not what you start with. You start
small and you move
you start compact and you work your way up.
And
so actually, for Mitchell and Dan, in recognition of everything that they've been working on,
which we haven't introduced yet,
I give you.
Whoa!
Because as is tradition,
Nice.
When a new piece of software is being presented, I like to bring the original unit to bear on the shows. Although we want money for carrying that up the stairs, by the way. Okay. Also, Fiona said, she goes, "Oh, you're going to play it on the show?" I mean, darling, it's a Chroma. It doesn't work.
And talking of things that don't work properly at the moment, you've been hearing our other lovely host here tonight, which is, of course, the wonderful, the ever effervescent, and the rather drinkled Mr. Brooks. How are you?
Am I lovely and effervescent? That's lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Andrew, for those.
You fill small
lovely...
holes as well, apparently.
What?
Wait, Andrew said you filled small holes. I don't know what the hell.
Yeah. Well, pleasure to be here. Of course. And
how's your week been?
Yeah. Generally, like every other, not much to report. So it's been okay. It's been okay. Culture of Ghosts has just put in the chat nice T-shirt. You will notice that my lovely ProSynth Network T-shirt is slightly no here I get the right tit. Has got literally the right tit. Has got the wrong. Well, it's
missing something.
It's missing a square.
Yeah.
And a sign. So I got home from work today to discover the mystery of the missing T-shirts, which Robbie has been sending for the last. And this was shoved under my door. You can't see that, but there it is. Courtesy of the Royal Mail, saying, "Sorry, Robbie. The sender has not paid the full postage." So, Royally Yours has had to cough up a whole, I tell you, a whole £1.50.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. to have the replacement T-shirt delivered on Monday. It will be delivered on Monday. But yeah, anyway.
Well, talking of replacement T-shirts, just before we go any further, somewhere here, look at this.
Oh, way up.
We're going to be covering this.
Oh, that's a nice
shortly.
T-shirt. That's a nice T-shirt.
The real thing as well as, and it leads me nicely. It's a lovely T-shirt. It leads me nicely into our other guests. Why don't I just open this? In fact, no, I'm going to bring them in one at a time. First of all, the one, the only, it rhymes with can. It's Mr. Dan Goldstein.
Hey, you guys are so effervescent tonight.
Drunk.
Oh,
One third of us is drunk.
How
are you, Dan? How are you, Dan?
Oh, doing great. Thank you. It's been a week. It's been a good week.
I'm sure it has. And you're going to be taking us through some lovely things that you've just, there's one particularly noticeable and notable instrument you've spent a while pulling together. We're going to hear more about that, and I know you've also been doing some special offers with that in terms of some money going to different foundations, and then you're doing another deal, doing something. You are Mr. Giveaway this week or this month. You're you're a lovely company, and you're a lovely chap.
Well, we try to give back.
You do, and it's a good thing. We like that. We very much like that, and it's why we adore you so much, including none other than Mitchell. Hey. How you doing?
I feel very zoomed up. Good. I got a lot going. I'm the non-lovely contingent of the company, I think.
The non-lovely contingent of the company.
Yeah. I apologize for all the boxes and stuff. I thought I deboxed pretty well, but I can see that I failed miserably. I've recently moved, but I'm getting to the point where I can't use that excuse anymore.
I can see plastic boxes over one of your shoulders that's full of lots of cables and things. I've been there, done that so many
Those
times.
Used to be on the other side of the computer with like perfect IKEA shelves that they fit in exactly with the labels facing exactly the right way and everything, and now it's just a mess.
Oh, I hate it when that happens. So listen, how's your week been? Again, I know you've had a big week or a big couple of weeks, and this is something which we will come to momentarily. How's it been?
Big company week, big news, a product we're super excited about. But honestly, I'm getting married in a month, so that's all that my world is right now. So
you're getting what in a month?
Getting married.
You're getting married?
Yeah.
Oh, congratulations.
No, people, when people react like that, I always think that they think, wow, isn't he a little old to be getting married? Shouldn't he have been married already? But no, neither of us have ever been married, and
well, congratulations.
Yeah.
We'll have to find a way to get you something from these lovelies to celebrate with. Maybe we could maybe send you a synth. I don't know. What do you think?
PS 3300. I'm sorry, actual
Timberwolf.
I think Mitchell needs one of those broken ProSynth networks.
Sorry, Mitchell.
That would be perfect.
Yeah. All my synths are back there in the closet right now because it moved. They're just sad and lonely.
That's like Kent. He's in the closet.
Yeah.
So
lots of synths in the closet.
I'm not.
So, well, we know that. So, I mean, this is one of those shows where we've got so much, it's almost difficult to know where to start talking about things. We've obviously got some wonderful news from you, and we will come to that because it's something that's been I've never had so many inbox posts about a new piece of software or even hardware. I don't think I've ever had as many as this, and it's all been good. There's not been there's been no one saying it's all been good. So we'll come to that shortly. But Superbooth has been causing a rash of new everything. We've got polysynths and we've got modular. We've got so many different things happening from so many manufacturers. So I thought before we did anything else, let's just do a quick round the room. You've obviously all been paying a little bit of attention to Superbooth. Anything? What's a notable one or two things? Let's start with you, Mitchell. What's been your sort of eye-catching things from Superbooth so far?
I literally just saw from, I think it's AMS. What's the company who does? They just announced a bunch of ARP 2500 modules in Euro format.
Yeah.
Which is really, really
AM
cool.
synths.
Yeah, AM. That's right. That's super neat, and the new Arturia big thing looks pretty nifty.
Are we talking poly here?
Yeah, it's the I don't know what the name of it is. It's that big, 12 voice.
The Polybrute 12.
Polybrute 12. Yeah, that does look very cool, I have to admit. So that's the stuff I think that I've really noticed. I know there's probably a bunch of other stuff that I'm not.
Oh, there's so much. Dan, have you got anything on your radar?
Yeah, the new Oberheim that was just announced. I love that.
The five voice.
Anyone that talks synths with me sooner or later learns that the Oberheim OBXA is my all-time personal favorite poly synth. I'm just a big fan of Oberheims. I've got them all behind me. And this one looks like it's $1,500 in the US. It's just what a great, what a great price point. What a great way to get access to that amazing Oberheim sound. I think it's very cool.
I
Here's
think
what
it's going to
happens
do.
when Dan says stuff like this. Now we're gonna get like a million posts that say like, "To hint that you're going to be making an plugin."
Yeah, are you mad? Are you mad? But you know what, Dan? You're right. It's been getting a lot of attention, and I think it's going to do very well. We will come on to that at some point. In the meantime, what about Kent? Has anything taken your fancy from Superbooth so far? There's been a lot of stuff out there, hasn't it?
Definitely Polybrute 12. Although I have to be, apparently I've been told I have to be a good boy for a while and not buy any more gear. But I find a little solace in the fact that I think at some point later, Arturia are going to release the keyboard mech that's on that lovely little machine as a MIDI controller, and I will wait to pounce on that. The Udo looked pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
The 8 voice.
Yeah, and what was it? What's the other thing? The was it TEO?
The Oberheim.
Yeah,
TO5, yeah.
yeah, that looked pretty cool as well. There was the usual plethora of kitten tickling things, the desktop twiddlies that are the size of an ant's arse. But those were the key areas that got my attention. I must admit.
It seems analog poly is back with a vengeance. And Andy, for you, what's been grabbing your attention, if anything?
I've seen very little of the Eurorack stuff so far, which is a bit of a surprise because it's hosted by Schneidersladen, which is a Eurorack retailer, so there'll be masses of that there. And I've seen very little. There's been one or two things. Of the things which I have seen, it's already been mentioned. The one which really gives me, super gas is the Super 8. It just looks phenomenal, and it sounds great, and everything about it goes, that's got my name on it. And the TEO 5
Yeah.
is again, it's just, I can potentially afford that, which is why I'm going, ooh, ow, oh dear, oh no, somebody stop me, because actually it's just got my name all over it. I loved it. I've watched a couple of the demos that people have done, including the Sonic State and one or two others, and I just go, oh my, it's got it all, and it's in a small box. I mean, see, I'm in a small room here. I mean, it probably looks bigger than it actually is, but it's really quite small and compact, and it's already full. And I'm going, how can I stick it on this Jasper stand? And I'm going, and I loved those. The Super 8 and the TEO 5 for me so far are the things that go. Yeah, the Polybrute 12 is phenomenal. I have no idea how I could fit it in here. And I'm sure there'll be more to come over the next few days. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what's going to happen in the Eurorack world, because, that's where my heart lies, really.
There is news coming, and there is some. We've got one, well, not Eurorack, but one rack modular thing.
Yeah,
that
that's the Pittsburgh,
tonight.
isn't it? Yeah, the
Pittsburgh,
Pittsburgh is definitely.
We'll come to
Oh
that.
my goodness, what a thing! So I'll shut up for now.
Let's just have a quick talk about the Udo Super 8, because that's an odd one. So I've been looking at it, and got to tell you, I love it to pieces. I think it's a very lovely thing. I think what's been very odd for me, I mean, one other good thing from Udo is they're releasing a keyboard that will allow you to upgrade your 6 to Poly Aftertouch as well, for I think £400, something like that, and it's a very simple thing to do. So that's good news. But I just wanted to canvass opinion here. So the 8 looks great, sounds great, but I'm just trying to work out why it rather than the Super Gemini, because the other thing which he said is that in the not too distant future, they're probably going to boost it from 16 voices to 20, which gives it the same voice count as the Super Gemini. So at what point do you say I won't bother with the Super Gemini then? There seems to be an odd thing there. Any thoughts about that?
No, that's not odd at all.
I don't know,
It fits
but I mean,
perfectly.
is this like a golden age of polyphonic keyboard aftertouch?
Oh, yeah, Dan.
Because for so long, it feels like for decades you couldn't find anything with poly aftertouch.
Yeah.
And now it's showing up everywhere. The Arturia, the new Arturia has it, I think. It's just great. It's so great to see that having come back and just showing up everywhere.
Well,
Are people playing catch-up with ASM?
Yeah.
And the Hydrasynth? Is that
Probably
what's
more
happening?
Rolly. I think Rolly kind
Rolly-
of got the ball going.
Okay.
Um,
To me, it seems more the ASM Hydrasynth is the one that's made
yeah.
other manufacturers go, oh shit, we've got to sit up.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's a keyboard with a synth, whereas the Rolly's just a keyboard.
Yeah,
So,
definitely more
Well,
traction came from that.
And the other thing that's that clearly it's been mentioned a few times is the Polybrute. The Polybrute 12 is interesting, not because it's got an additional 6 voices. That's kind of cool and nice, and why not? It's the keyboard. It's
Yeah.
doing things.
Yeah.
It's doing things with Poly Aftertouch and its own different keyboard modes that are quite astonishing and unique, and seem to be getting a huge amount of attention. It's not gone down the Osmos route of side to side
Right.
wobble, as it were, but it's got a whole bunch of different aftertouch modes and or poly aftertouch modes that really dive. Shall we have a quick look at a video for this, do you think? What do we think?
Sure.
I'm gonna be bringing that up. Let's have a look. Polybrute. Well, here's the thing. We don't have it on in our normal repository, so I'll come back to that and I will play it to you, because I'll play it over YouTube and do the usual things. But the other thing which came up this week, which will lead me on nicely to the next thing, is of course that Korg have now announced they're doing their limited production run from, I think it's September, of the PS3300. They obviously were listening to you guys at Cherry. You created such a large amount of noise. Then they brought this out, which was which was very kind of them to follow you like that. Is it something which you both love?
Mitchell and I had such a great time at EMEAP in Philadelphia, locked in a room with the original PS3300. It's just such a beast. It's such a big thing. It's just I love the idea. I mean, it's out of left field that you can get a new one. I still can't believe that, and I'd like to be on that waiting list personally. Like to know where to sign up.
Weird, because you've got all those controls. You've got the 3 separate sets of controls, so it's almost like having an SEM. I'm pointing at an SEM. It's like having an SEM, but 3 of them, but they're polyphonic. So yeah, it's how it is when you have a lot of controls like that. It's great because you can get your hands on so much at once, but it's also a lot to keep track of in your brain. But yeah, I mean, it's very cool. I don't know what they're going to cost. Aren't they like 12 grand or something crazy?
I think it's 13,000, something like that.
Yeah.
Like that.
So obviously it's a very rarefied market there, and it's above my pay grade.
So
but,
what I was going to ask was, whilst you were at EMEA, the last time you were on the show and talking about all sorts of wonderful things, you mentioned another synth that you were going to be working on. You've been working on for a very long time. Was there one of those things there? Did you use that as an excuse, or have you been looking at it since
I am
forever?
positive there was one there. In my brain, I'm trying to recall the endless rooms of synthesizers. And Dan, I think I remember where didn't they have one in the big room with the Emerson organ?
They don't have an expander. Those are exceedingly rare.
Dan has one.
But they do have the original. But no, that's not. We have our own.
No, if they did have one, yeah, then we only glanced at it. But going through that place, there's just so much stuff. It's sensory overload. And to give you an idea, the room that we were locked in with the 3300 wasn't that big, but directly like on the opposite wall was a giant 2500. And I've never been in the same room with an ARP 2500. I'm sorry for those who don't know.
Yeah.
And just having that behind us, we'd be messing with this amazing PS 3300, and then you'd be like, "Whoa, it's so cool."
So listen, I just wondered because I noticed that I've just found a video somewhere that's something to do with something you've been working on that apparently a few people are interested in hearing about. You don't have the video there, do you? Or shall I just run it from YouTube?
Go for it.
I think
that's
we
probably the
should.
easiest way. Yeah.
Righty-ho. This might cause some issues with all sorts of weirdness, but bear with me, and I'm going to take this up to full, and here we go.
The Chroma was quite an advanced instrument, had a semi-weighted keyboard, wonderful functions and capabilities.
The keyboard and the pitch bender made it a very playable player's instrument.
There was a lot of thought to it. Everything was very particular. They really wanted it to look very nice.
I think one of the greatest things, besides polyphony, of course, was the fact that, hey, you could remember your patch settings.
Now I can look back and think, boy, if we only had a bigger display.
You know, you've got hundreds and hundreds of functions and one little tiny little window and a thumper.
So they had a prototype, and at that point, I was trying to figure out how to run it in the studio. Phil had brought one down, no documentation. I remember I just couldn't figure out how to program it.
It was very difficult to understand much of anything. I just couldn't get any information out of them. You know, I mean, they were too busy surviving, I suppose.
ARP was just barely hanging on. It wasn't their fault, but it was just hard to keep everything going at that point.
I know they were trying to do a lot of new things.
Ooh.
Still my beating heart. So you've only gone and blummin' done this. How long have you been working on this? Do you want to tell Dan? Tell us all about it.
Oh boy, it's been a year and a half. It's been 18 months. It began with getting a broken Chroma and a broken expander. As Kent mentioned, they're all broken, but they're broken in all kinds of wonderful ways. And we got a hold of these and spent months repairing them. fortunately, there's just a wonderfully active community of Chroma aficionados out there that make new power supplies and new voice cards and new CPU boards and replacement parts for everything and MIDI upgrades and on and on and on. So we were able to get both the units fully working and upgraded with MIDI. And then once we had them working, we had the process of figuring out what the Chroma does. So the Chroma, it is immensely powerful, and to program one, you need one of these. You need this guide, and this is, I mean, I'm not exaggerating. This is what you have to do, and so when you bought a Chroma in 1981, it came with this, or an earlier version of this, not laminated, that you had to tear out of the manual and then reference constantly to see every modulation source, every destination, every parameter, every patch mode. It's a wonderfully impossible instrument to program, but underneath the interface is the most, I mean, I don't think I'm exaggerating here when I say it is the most sophisticated and complex polysynth of its era. And it is, I mean, understand what this thing is, right? This is a weighted keyboard, velocity sensitive, poly aftertouch with an arpeggiator, a sequencer, modular configuration, 16 voices, 32 envelopes, 16 multi-mode filters, a computer interface, endless modulation sources, and all of this conceived in 1979, just 2 years after the Prophet 5 came out. So 2 years after someone first took a microprocessor and hooked it up to a keyboard and multiple synth voices, the people at ARP sat down and said, let's build a polyphonic synthesizer that does everything we can possibly imagine. And I love that. And they set out to build this thing. ARP went out of business. The team and the designs got purchased by Fender, and Rhodes completed the project. And I mean, the truth is, the technology of the time was not exactly able.
I was
to
going to
live
ask
up
if
to
it was
dreams
too much too soon.
Yeah. I mean, it was just they dreamt so big. And so we had the opportunity to take that design and turn it into something with a more accessible and a better interface, but that was 100% true to the original hardware. And I would say, from the outset, the biggest challenge that we had from day one all sort of landed on Mitchell's shoulders, which was, how do we design this instrument? How do we take the Chroma with its notoriously impossible to use user interface, design it into a piece of software that is accessible, that looks and feels like a Chroma, that fits on the screen, that's easy to, or at least easier to program. And as always, Mitchell just nailed it, just hit it out of the park. He did such a great job on this.
So I'm just going to come to Mitchell, but I got to tell you, I think I told you before the show started, I've never had so many posts and emails about a soft synth or even a hardware synth arrive here ahead of, once this was announced. I've had so many emails from people, and every single one of them has a story to tell about Chroma and about their affection for it. It's really strange because a lot of people that have never seen one don't quite get it, but if you've used one, you become a fan, and it's something which you regretted selling. Almost everyone says, I had them for years. I had 2, and then I had 3, and then I had to sell them. So it's clearly really well regarded, but it is. I mean, just looking at the interface, we've got both the expander and the Chroma. Mitchell, talk us
Yes.
through this. I mean, first of all, just talk us through the design. Let me just give you the floor for a minute. Tell us a little bit about how you tackle this, because it's
Sure.
a beast.
So, to expand on what Dan was saying, let me turn my mic down a tiny bit here. Here we go. So the original, the card he was showing you, the reason why you needed that was because, say you were going to select a modulation destination. So you'd click on one of those buttons, and then on the left where the little display is, where the little LED display is in the original one, you'd pick a number 1 through 16 or however many there were, and maybe 1 would be, you know, filter cutoff, and 2 would be resonance, and 3 whatever the destination was or source. So you just have these numbers. So you'd be constantly looking back at that, and we couldn't do that. You know, the first thought is, well, you know, you want to make it like the original. So, you know, we thought, well, we could make it exactly like the original, but that would be awful, and people would hate it. And especially a synth like this that a lot of people haven't used before, they wouldn't have any frame of reference. They just know that they're using this thing and it's really hard to use and this sucks. So the idea became where all those little labels are that say things, you know, dual layer, sus pedal enabled, all those little tiny labels inside the buttons. On the original, those just had numbers silkscreen from 1 through 50. 1 through 25 at the top row, and 26 through 50 at the bottom, and they double this program to select buttons depending what mode you were in, so there were 50 stored presets. So given our patch browser, obviously we didn't need those to select patches. So it occurred to me that like those numbers, those big numbers, were pointless. So we could use that space, and that was really important. We had these little spaces inside each one of the buttons. And so there are 2 kinds of controls. There's the kind you're on right now that's just essentially a slider where you can slide up and down and change the value up and down. And I thought, okay, well, we'll make a teeny slider in there and we'll display the number value for whatever the parameter is in there. And then the question mark was all those, like what you're on right now, are the menus. And if you click on one of those, you can see that one only has 4. But if we could have pop-up menus there, this is a million times better than having a number and a card that you have to refer to. So all those exact same menus from the original are contained under these buttons now. And of course you can see what they are. And my man, I hope this works idea was what if we could have little tiny labels on the buttons telling you what your current menu selection is, little abbreviations. So that's what all those are. So if you click on that, click on any one of them, you can see there's the long version, right? And if you let go of it, you can see there's the abbreviated version. And in the Crimea River category, I had to make SVG text labels for every single one of those menus for every button that had them. Those are actual graphics. Those aren't live text. And the reason I had to do that was because every one of those had to be sized and the characters had to be spaced in such a way where they would fit inside that. That one was a really hard one too, making all those little waveforms. And I did some ridiculous copying out of the original owner's manual, get all those wave shapes right for the mod shapes. So once we figured out that we could fit everything in those little buttons and get all those little sliders going for the numeric ones, it became a new instrument. And along with that, similarly, if you click on the patch configuration button all the way at the left, it's the orange.
This one?
I'm sorry, it's the orange one. It's not all the way at the left. It's in parameter program. Underneath the big diagram of the oscillators or of the voice
Underneath
structure.
the big diagram.
Yeah, the orange one right underneath. Or you can click right on that.
Oh, this one? Oh, here. Right,
Yeah,
right.
So if you click on that,
Oh, my lord.
that's the other magical thing about a Chroma. It has the ability, like if you put it on the very first one, single layer. If you put it on single layer, this is a very standard synth voice, right? You've got oscillator, filter, amp, and then the amp gets modulated by one of the envelope generators or both. And then if you select another one, let's click on that again. You can go to dual layers, and then you've got 2 of the same thing. But then as you go through those, they get more and more crazy. Now you've got oscillator sync, but if you move down for filter FM's fine. Now you can do filter FM, but if you look at that one closely, you can see like coming out of D, instead of going to the audio output, the diagram on the right there, it goes back into the filter. So you're using that second voice path to modulate the filter. So it does all sorts of things like that with the different voice configurations. And it's very modular synth-like. You have all these abilities. So, occasionally I've seen comments from people in the last week where they say, oh, it's just another analog synth. But it is not just another analog polysynth, because
So
you can't do any of this with a regular one.
What this reminds me of is all of the algorithms for the DX. When the DX came out, it had algorithms, lots of different
Right.
algorithms, and people were going, no idea, but they could see that it changed. And if you got into any kind of FM synthesis, got started to program, you suddenly realize just how powerful the way the different feedback loops and the structure of the
Yeah, this
operation.
is a little easier to get your head around than that, because it's, once you know what these things do and what ring mod sounds like or what filter mod sounds like, it's not like a DX where you just don't know what the heck you're going to get. But you have all these different options for voice routing. And I should add, on the original Chroma, every one of these 16 voice configurations, again, was selected with a number, which started with 0, 0, 1, 2, 3. And you know which one 3 is? Me neither. So you had to look back at that card again. So that was the other big idea. I was like, okay, what if we had graphics showing you exactly what the voice configuration was? And additionally, if you can see where some of the boxes are orange and some are white, that tells you which of the voices you're editing. If you click on Edit D over to your left, the blue button, down a little, Edit Mode D, there you go. Now they turn orange. Now you're working on, now all the controls affect the D voice path, or you can hit C and D and it does both at once.
So
And
what we're seeing here at the moment is two instances of Chroma, which is Chroma at the bottom and then the expander, which you could get as hardware on top. So we've actually, any one of these, if we go to a single layer, that gives us a 2 oscillator 16 voice synth.
Right.
And then
Yeah,
if you go to anything more than that with the expander, so you can go to double, or you can go to split, which sets a split, I'm assuming, across the keyboard, and then, there we go, set split.
you can
There, so
also
we can
hide
set
the
the
keyboard.
split.
Oh, you've got keyboard hidden. For the people who aren't necessarily total Chroma nerds, that expander isn't really our original creation. There was the Rhodes Chroma, which was the regular synthesizer with a keyboard. And then if that wasn't enough for you, you could buy an actual Chroma expander that looked like this. And it was a Chroma with the keys chopped off, and it stacked on top perfectly. And some spoiled people like Dan have both of them.
Now, what's amazing about the expander is that this is all pre-MIDI. So you controlled the expander with a Chroma. You had to plug the expander into the Chroma through a digital cable, and it had a pre-MIDI interface that it would use to communicate between the two. And in addition, you could plug the Chroma into your Apple II computer, and you could store patches and control it remotely. And again, all of this pre-MIDI.
Didn't
So
they have some sort of janky sequencer too?
On the software side, on the Apple,
Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, you have to understand, this is so early and so innovative.
Yeah.
And just the idea of plugging a computer into your synthesizer before MIDI was a thing is astonishing on its own.
Yeah.
All those models that you saw, the way that you can configure the oscillators and the filters and the amplifiers to do ring modulation, or parallel filters, serial filters, FM, filter FM, all of these things turned out to be essentially almost new instruments. So when it came to modeling all this, not only did we have to get the filters and the envelopes and the oscillators exactly right, but every one of those patch modes had to respond exactly like the hardware. So it turned out in the end to be more like modeling a dozen different synthesizers with all these different capabilities, and every one of them had to sound perfect, or else the original patches wouldn't sound right. And that was our goal from the start, was to make it so that the hardware and the software were indistinguishable. Controlling the software from the Chroma hardware is essentially like having an expander to your Chroma. You can actually sysx sounds from the Chroma directly to the software and A/B them, and they'll all sound identical. And that was an effort. That was a serious effort, more than we ever expected it to be from the start, because everything on the Chroma is weird and unexpected. The way the sequencer works, the way the arpeggiator works, is unlike any other synthesizer. And I can explain, I can go into detail on any of this stuff if anyone's interested, but there were so many bizarre and interesting challenges. And then on top of that, the Chroma came with 2 foot pedals and then 2 swell pedals as well. And all of these could be routed to do different things. And we wanted to preserve all of that. So we had to find ways to do that in a software instrument. And again, that all fell on Mitchell, who just, time and time again found a way to do it that made sense.
So, I mean, the Chroma is kind of legendary. And I remember Rupert Greensall.
Rupert Greeno. He's a nice
Rupert
guy.
Greenall, that's the guy. There we go.
Yeah.
I used to work at a studio back in the early 80s, or early to mid 80s, it had a rehearsal rooms as well, and I think it was him that bought one along there the first time I saw one, and he got the expander fairly soon after as well. And I was just fascinated, but it completely impenetrable to me at the time, unless you could sit down with the charts. But it made some glorious sounds. And I think one of the things with an instrument like this is it can be a bit daunting when you first look at it. But what I was doing whilst you were talking there, Mitchell, was just going through all the different presets. You have got the classics, all of the classic presets here, little PWM. So we can go through some of those. We can do bell strikes. We've got factory presets, brass.
And those factory presets are direct sysx from the original unit.
So there's an awful lot here. So although it's kind of daunting initially, because you're looking at going, I've no idea, by scooping through these, you can see exactly how the thing's working. You can play around and experiment. But more to the point, you've actually got some wonderful, wonderful presets that ship with this. So you're never going to be stuck wondering, James Dyson. So it's a wonderful sounding thing. Kent,
Yes, dear.
give us. You've seen a Chroma or two in your time, I know. Do you want to tell us a little? First of all, what you're thinking? Have you had a look at this yourself yet?
Yeah, I have. Well, the thing is, I found the machine very pleasant to play. Anyway,
The original.
no, the software.
Oh,
No, the software. I've been messing around with it for hours. Once it was fired up, and I was just going through some sounds, and nearly every patch I came across, I ended up writing something very influential sounding. Yeah, it rings of the whole Chroma experience, but the nice end of the Chroma experience, as opposed to the oh dear, why is it on fire again side of the experience, because it had a power supply that was essentially, just a health hazard. And so the software is, at least as far as I'm concerned, massively welcomed, because I can now play Chroma, not have to bother having a fire extinguisher in the bedroom anymore, which is all good for me. I like the idea that it's got the expander with it as well. They are rare. That actually, I think they're probably more stable in some ways than the original keyboard version. Probably because it just didn't have, it wasn't as much going on because of the keyboard. And I just love this software so much. You've done a beautiful job.
And I'll tell you what's wonderful about it, what's really good. Often when you get software emulations, I mean, you guys sort of stray into the territory often now, almost everyone, where you're not doing what everyone else is doing. And so with the PS3300, it was kind of, yeah, like if I go and get most software synths that are emulations, you kind of know what you're going to get. It's a Moogie sound. You can do this with the filter. You end up with the same kinds of sounds. You have some presets, you get some additional functionality and all that kind of thing. But it's kind of that not exactly much of a muchness. They're very, very good emulations. Lots of people doing very good emulations of things. But you kind of you kick out this, you kick this out, and it's so different. It's just so different and so gorgeous. When you mix it with this with a piano. I mean, that's Vangelis. It's a chroma. It's such a good sounding thing. So, tell us more, Dan. Tell us more about this, because I know you've been working on this for a long time and you've been very guarded about it. So, it's gone on sale this week. Tell us about the pricing. Tell us about all the good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, look, if it sounds good, if it's expressive, that's all due to the engineers at ARP who designed this thing in the first place. Everything about the instrument is true to the original's capabilities. We added very little to it. There's stereo panning that's not on the original. We added a couple convenient volume controls because it's really difficult to adjust the volume on the original for the individual layers. And of course, we added an entire effects section, but the entire architecture, every modulation source, everything you can do with it is pure chroma, and again, straight from the hardware. And yeah, listen, that was not easy to do. I mean, the filters, for example, the filters on the chroma, they're 2-pole filters. They use a Curtis chip called a Curtis 3350. This chip is only found in the chroma, the Krumar Spirit, and I think the Syrinx, the Synton Syrinx.
Yeah.
This is not a filter. This is not a chip you encounter. And it has all sorts of weird behaviors. So when we set out to model it, I thought, okay, it's a 2-pole filter. It shouldn't be too challenging. It was wildly challenging. The resonance of the filter behaves completely differently with low frequency. As you go higher, as the filter opens up, the resonance drops, and at a certain point, the resonance just kind of goes away. But it's not linear; it's not predictable, and so we had to measure the resonance level at every single filter cutoff that the machine is capable of, with 7 different resonance levels that you can set on the chroma. To get this right. Here's a great example of the part of modeling this. So the chroma is velocity sensitive, and it has, I think, 5 or 6 velocity curves. They are low, medium, high, and high. And there's no documentation on what that means. And it turns out the way that works is that there's just a table of values inside the software of the chroma that says that if you've selected medium low and velocity 72 comes in, then that translates to a certain voltage. And we didn't know what any of that was. So the way we got that right,
is that linear?
No, not even remotely linear. It would have been great if it was linear. That would have been easy. But we tried all kinds of different curves and none of them matched. So we had to invent new technology. What we did is I wrote software that sent every single MIDI velocity value to the hardware and then measured the volume of the outputs. And we had it output a square wave, so a very flat line, and then as the velocities increased, the amplitude would increase, and we measured that for every velocity curve, for every MIDI velocity value, over and over again, and created an average table to figure out all of those values. And it's replicated again exactly as we found on the hardware. So when you send a velocity to the hardware or that same velocity to the software, the amplitude that comes out is identical. The only way to do it was to create new technology. Same with the LFO speed. The LFO speed goes from 0 to 64, I think. 0 to 32, 0 to 64. It's all different on a Chroma. 0 to 63. And it's not in any way linear or predictable. So we had to find a way to measure the frequency of the LFO at every single available parameter and then match that. And we had to do this in 100 different ways for just 100 different quirky things. The LFO has 16 waveforms, and a bunch of them are patterns, right? If you click right there, you can see all these waveforms. There's some of them are simple like triangles, but there's something called lag square. There's these 5 or 6 different patterns. There's what they call the sequencer. No, not the sequencer, the random. And we had to figure out what all that meant and then and replicate that. And those patterns will actually play musical arpeggios if you use those LFO shapes to modulate pitch. But we had to unlock so many secrets that were inside of this machine. You'll notice the envelopes have no sustain stage. They are ADR envelopes, but if you turn the decay up to 100, they become sustain. And actually, if you click on that, you'll see it shows in the tooltip sustain at 100% when you are at maximum decay. Here's a wonderful little hidden trick. Go to delay, envelope to delay, just to the left of where you are, just a couple boxes to the left. So what that does is it causes the second envelope to be delayed when you press a key. But go ahead and click on that and turn it all the way up. When you do this on a Chroma, it enters a mode called re-trigger on sweep. And all the voices get re-triggered by the LFOs. But on a Chroma, every voice has its own LFO. Actually, every voice has 2 LFOs in dual mode. And so what happens is you have asynchronous LFOs. They're all running at different phase, but on a Chroma, when you are in asynchronous polyphonic LFO mode, it also detunes. It randomly detunes all the LFOs. So they run at different speeds on every voice. And then it will trigger all the voices randomly. And it's wonderful and odd and quirky. And we had to figure all of that out. And I could go on. I could spend an hour talking about all the crazy things that we have discovered in the process of modeling this instrument.
So let's just come back to all of us again. So here's the thing. This was made in what, 79?
They began work on it in 79. It came out, I believe, in 81 or 82. I think, you know what? I think ARP went bankrupt in 81. I think Rhodes put it out in 82, if I'm hopefully not screwing up.
How the hell did... I mean...
I think I played it in 83 or 84.
84.
And we've been working on
but
it
that
since
was
then,
in
too.
funny Doncaster.
since I was in junior high.
How the hell did they do? I mean, I know they went bankrupt, which is probably not a great surprise given how much. I mean, this is just so ridiculously groundbreaking. If this had come out 10 years later, it would still have been groundbreaking, right?
Oh
Even
my God.
probably even 20 years later. As engineers, so Mitchell and Ken, as engineers, you know this stuff. Are you surprised at how ridiculously complex and that it works at all? I know you've had to fix a lot. Are you surprised it works at all, Ken?
I tell you what, if I showed you a single voice card, you would look at it and go, how are they getting all these different sounds and facilities from that card? There isn't a lot on it. And we're not talking big ICs. We're not talking about, big 120 leg weird things in the corner. We're talking about really conventional types of ICs. You're doing switching and stuff like that on these to, a Curtis filter and I think it's a transistor. I think it's a transistor array VCO on it.
That's correct.
Yeah, something like, is it a 3086 or something of that nature?
Yeah, it uses something called what is it? A voltage pump or something like that. But yeah, it's a transistor array. I mean, the oscillators are sawtooth waves and pulse waves, and that's it.
Yeah.
But
yeah, you just look at the amount of components on it. It's the classic example of more than the sum of its components.
Right.
It really is.
So what is the secret sauce with it? How did such a simple set of components on these voice cards come together to give
I think
us all
most
of
of the
this?
magic occurred on the I/O board, which is the board that laid just underneath all the touch switches. Just very, very cleverly written software. Very cleverly written software. And allowing enough connections to each voice card to run so many different combinations simultaneously.
Go, Mitchell, you had something to say.
Oh, we had a question that was kind of good. I think Jason Crouch asks, was the development time longer than other emulations due to the complexity of feature set inherent in the original, or more finding a workable interface? And I think the answer to that is really both. I'm sure people are getting the idea that Dan was largely saddled with figuring the thing out and how to make it all work, and I was saddled with figuring out a user interface that was workable. And we both spent a lot of time on it. It's not that important to it, but Dan had a lot of time to himself without me pestering him because I moved across the country in the middle of the development of this thing. So I was just off the air moving, but it actually worked out really good because it bought Dan a lot of time to analyze it and figure it out. And as far as the UI went, I had actually started way before. This is what always happens, and people always say, "Oh, you guys crank out synths in 6 weeks or whatever," but that's not true at all.
No,
I'm the first one. When we decide we're going to do something or maybe do something, we're not even sure, I'll start drawing it. And I'll start figuring out how it's going to work and how to make it happen. So it had been on my mind for a long time. And then it was just a matter of just doing it and figuring out something that's presentable to the public at large. So, so the answer to that is really an all round. Me, Dan, and while I'm talking about it, I should also mention Mal Meehan did the amazing 3D artwork. I do sort of the flat stuff. I do the sort of the flat stuff and the controls, but he's the one who makes it look 3D and incredible. And also James Terrace, our lead sound designer, programmed a lot of the factory presets. If you know his style, he has a style that's really cool, and he was sort of in charge of getting all the other programmers in line.
Yeah,
Including,
can I talk about sound design for just a second?
yeah, I was about to ask. Go.
Well, so when we talk about the challenges with the Chroma, and there were so many challenges with the Chroma, sound design is a process that comes largely at the end of any of our product development, because we can't really turn it over to sound designers and have them making presets while we're still changing things on the instrument, or else it winds up that people build a bunch of presets and then they change and break and don't work anymore, and they have to go back and redo them all. So with an instrument this complex, we really had to have it 100% complete before we could turn it over to the sound design team. But once we turned it over to the sound design team, we had to train sound designers on how to use a chroma because it's so complex. So James spent weeks learning how to use the chroma, and then he created, I think, video or documents teaching the other sound designers
James
how
Dyson.
to use this, how to get the most out of it. And
James
then,
Terrace.
Yeah, James Terrace.
Not James.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
And so, yeah, just that whole process of, you know, how do you take people that have maybe never had their hands on a chroma and teach them to use an instrument that is so deep and so complex? And to their credit, and it just blows me away, every one of our sound designers, everyone who worked on this project just amazed us with what they came up with. The presets, I mean, all I can say is, you know, there are 700 of them that come with the instrument. 250 of them are the original factory presets. There are 450 that were created by James Terrace and his sound design team. And then there's another 100 presets also by James Terrace that you can buy for $9.99, I think. And every one of them just showcases what the chroma is capable of. And
So I got to ask you whilst you're here, do you have any particular favourites, your presets? Because we're talking about it, we're seeing it, we've heard it once or twice. Give us a couple of favourites presets, and I'll dig them up as we're here. We go.
My favorite, I'm not sure which bank it's in, but it's called A Pad with Teeth. It's just under Chroma presets. It's one of the James Terrace ones.
A pad with teeth. There we go.
I just love pads, and this one in particular. I've lost days just saying.
Lovely stereo in there.
Isn't it just?
Yeah.
So, come on, some more whilst we're here. Mitchell.
Oh, yeah. Show them off.
Can't hear a thing you're saying. You're muted at the moment, Mitchell. There we go.
Dan knows all the presets. I don't know the presets because I always just mess with it. I hate to admit it.
There's a factory preset. It's 4-30. It's called... it's something like ocean scene or beach scene. And it's just the people that built the chroma. Yeah, that's the one right there. Yeah. Just hold down a key. And then I think you have to play the left side of the keyboard as well, maybe to get, is it a split? No, it's just a double. It's a little quiet right now. But there's waves and birds and ocean liners, and it just shows the sort of whimsical nature of the people that were doing these presets back in 1981.
It's a big demand for Stampede hoof beats in the day.
Try getting an ocean scene on your Mini Moog or your Prophet 5. And
that's just nuts.
You'll quite pull it off.
They probably figured you'd use it for sound design, and there weren't nearly as many resources back then.
Andy, someone's ringing you up.
Yeah.
Try one called Unstable Beauty. That's my current favourite.
Where is it?
Oh, God. Now he's asking.
Yeah, you can just search it.
Yeah, if you just go to all collections.
It's in pads, third row, near the bottom.
Pads, third row, near the bottom.
It's because they're on category.
Okay, let's go.
Yeah, just go to all presets and do a search.
Yeah,
all
collections. Yeah,
all,
and search it.
And what's it called?
Unstable Beauty.
Enough about me. What's it called?
There you go.
Oh,
Here we go.
It's better live up to expectations, Andy.
Oh. Oh my, yes, that's rather lovely. So
that's a lovely, lovely sound.
it's a gorgeous sound, and I can
I love
blend
it.
that with a whole bunch of lovely. So tell it, we're still, we haven't heard from you any of the lovely deals. So what's the price? What's the deal? How's that all working, Dan? Tell us all about that.
Sure. Yeah. It's $69. It's about $10 more than our typical instrument, but so much work and time went into this, plus so much sound design. We always aim to sell our products for the lowest price that we possibly can, and I think it's a very attractive price for all the power and capabilities of this instrument. In addition, 5% of every chroma that we sell from our website during the month of May, 5% of that is going to the Alan R. Perelman Foundation.
Whoop.
Indeed. Whoop.
Is a foundation that we strongly support, and we've raised money for them many times in the past. And I'm wearing one of their shirts right now.
Hey.
But we love the Alan R. Perelman Foundation, and even if you're watching this and the chroma is not your cup of tea, please go to the Alan R. Perelman Foundation website and just give them some money.
Give them some money. They're doing
Already have, Dan. Already have, and do every month.
Yeah, excellent. And I think Dina's in the chat. We love you, Dina. Thank you.
Yeah, we do.
Always for your support.
So
yeah, so $69 at cherryaudio.com.
Okay, well look, I think that's an absolute steal, but I believe there's also one other little thing you're doing this month. What's that?
We are starting yesterday. We launched a bundle with Humble Bundle. Humble Bundle does these wonderful projects where they sell software and other things for whatever you want to pay, and all of it is in order to raise money for charity. So there's a new bundle that launched yesterday. It's called the Music Creators Studio Essentials Bundle. It's with our friends at Soundtrack Loops. I've got their shirt. We love Soundtrack Loops. And this bundle includes Cherry Audio's Quadra, our Dream Synth, our Mercury 4, three of our personal favorite synthesizers, a whole bunch of fantastic loop sets from Soundtrack Loops. It includes Mixcraft 9 DAW from Acoustica, and you can pay as little as $1 for all of this. You can pay whatever you want.
Wow.
It goes to support the Children's Miracle Network hospitals. Since yesterday, we've raised, I think, over $2,000 to support the charity.
Wow, that's fantastic.
And this will keep going for weeks. I think it runs for something like a month. And in the past, every time we've done this, we've been able to raise tens of thousands of dollars for some fantastic charities. And
where can they find that again?
That's at humblebundle.com. You click on bundles, software, and it's, I think, the very first one. It's called the Music Creators Studio Essentials Software Bundle, which is a mouthful. I did not name it. But seriously, I mean, if nothing else, you'll get 3 great synthesizers and hundreds of amazing loops for essentially no money at all.
There we go. I'm just looking at it now. Let me just bring this up. Go away. More options. Hang about a second. Confirm my choices. There we go. So let's just bring this in. Hang on a moment. Present. Share screen, and there we go. Is this the one?
There you go. Exactly. Mercury 4, Dream Synth, Quadra. If you scroll down, keep scrolling down because there's a lot included with this bundle.
Bloody hell.
And then all these fantastic loops. Oh, our Stardust 201 tape echo is in there. These are all loop, like complete loop sets from Soundtrack Loops. And yeah, I mean, as you can see, you can pay as little as 80 pence for as much
That's
as
a
you
great
want,
deal.
because it goes to charity.
Well, that's fantastic there. Thank you, gents. So let's just come back out of this. And apparently, I think, first of all, thank you. Nice job. I love this synth. I really, really like this.
Yeah.
Do you know, the one person I haven't asked about this so far, Mr. Brooks, what's your because you're a Eurorack man, what do you think of this rather lovely beastie?
Oh, I mean, I did play a Chroma at one point, long in the distant past, as well as the Solaris, which was mentioned in the chat. A funny shop in Doncaster. I mean, who'd have thunk it? And I ended up leaving with a Tysco 60F, which I regret not having here today. But I'm not a software guy. I do have a couple of Cherry Audios things which I have on my computer, which I do play with. But my attention is over this side, which is Eurorack. So I tend not to be that focused on it. All I want to do is just applaud these guys for the work that they do in bringing these machines to people who couldn't possibly afford to go out and buy an original version, even if they found one that was working, which you're not going to do, as Kent rightly said. Yeah. So I do find it astonishing, and their dedication to bringing something as authentic as possible, even having the interface as authentic as they can, but making it as usable as possible, is actually really commendable. I mean, I was, the question I had in my hand is, why didn't you just cover it with loads of knobs and switches and things that could do it? And actually, in listening, it made sense that they didn't, because that wouldn't be the essence of what they've done. I think it's wonderful. I mean, I'm really in awe of these guys, and yeah, amazing.
Plus, they haven't made a monitor big enough that would be.
They haven't made a monitor big enough.
Once, yeah.
Exactly, Kent. Yeah, you'd have to. I mean, I've got a 23-inch here, and I might get the oscillator section in.
Corner.
So.
Yeah, Mitchell can speak to this, but it's something we have learned from the beginning when we started doing these instruments. Is there's always a temptation to start changing things and reorganizing things, and it's so easy to get away from the essence of what we're trying to create. I'll just turn it over to Mitchell to talk about that.
It's one I've seen some comments on YouTube videos, that kind of thing, and this one especially, because it was so necessary to change the interface, as I explained in great detail, to make it usable. And some folks say things like, well, how come you didn't put a bunch of knobs on it, make it like a mini Moog? And it's like, well, you can't. But if I'm being honest, there's a fine line also between keeping it feeling like the instrument and looking and having that vibe. It has to, because otherwise we're sticking the name of something, even if it sounds like it. It's really weird, and in my mind kind of wrong to say this is an emulation of something, and trust us, it sounds like it, but it doesn't look or feel like it. So you really need to have the feel properly correct, but make it usable, and not, in this case, not a nightmare to use.
So let me...
You there?
stage. There we go. So, what is the temptation with something like this? Because it would seem like a sensible thing to a lot of people to say, well, let's add in just a generic filter, resin, filter open, shut, attack, decay, those kinds of things. Just add them on there so that once someone's got a preset up, if they just want to make a few little changes to some of the parts, just give them something to do that. But that takes away from, it changes so much. What's your thinking when you're designing these things, particularly this one, because it's so complicated? What was your thinking on that?
This is probably going to sound really weird, but this is what makes me wildly qualified for this job, because I'm one of the few people on the face of the earth that probably looks at it and goes, it's this cantankerous, weird thing, and I'm going to keep it just like that as much as I possibly can. I do not have those urges. When I see instruments, even when I see instruments where it's like a row of macro controls at the bottom, so you don't have to go in there and find the cutoff or what, I just turn my nose up. Ew, and go find it. I just want things to feel like the thing or look like the thing. And I mean, there are some practicality things, and we did make some changes on this to make it more practical besides just the basic UI, but not much. It's much as possible. I love making them just like the original, and Dan will tell you, like when I originally drop the design, it'll be almost identical to the original, and Dan will be like, hey dude, you got to make the LFO syncable like to MIDI, and I'll be like, oh yeah. So for me, it's a crap. I gotta add a button. I don't want it. It'll look wrong. So I'm not tempted to add a million things.
We've had a couple of questions. I think we've already had them asked, but I will just run them past. I had Peter James Stephen ask. He's got a Polaris. Is the MIDI SysX for Polaris compatible with this and vice versa or not?
No. So after the Chroma came out, I don't know if it was a year or two after, but Rhodes released the follow-up, which was the Chroma Polaris, which is, I might be mistaken here, but I think it has much more in common with something like a Juno 106. It's not really a Chroma. I guess you could call it a very scaled down version of the Chroma, but it's a much more hands-on, accessible kind of instrument. But other than the name, there's no relation between the two, and the SysX definitely is not in any way compatible with the Chroma.
And when the Chroma came out, you can also talk to this. I recall it was poly aftertouch, is that right?
Yeah,
that's right.
So there was the CS80 and the only two instruments that had poly aftertouch, is that right? I thought, well, actually,
no, I think
Polymove.
the T8 had come out by then. I think at least around that time.
82, 83.
Yeah, something like
that.
Yeah, in a very similar kind of keyboard design as well. Was there anything else? Good question.
I mean, there might have been some of those really super high end, or some of the weird things.
There might have been some weirdies knocking around. Yeah,
the claviers or whatever, that kind of thing.
As far as mainstream, just the mainstream ones really would be those pretty much.
There were actually very, very few Chroma units that shipped with poly aftertouch. I think it wasn't ready when they shipped it, and I think it was a kit that you could get and install, and I believe is very difficult to install. They make aftermarket kits now that are also very difficult to install. But I'm pretty sure, even though the Chroma was always capable of poly aftertouch, most of them didn't actually have it.
Yeah. So, and the reason I mention that is, of course, MPE, poly aftertouch, it's a big thing now. As we've seen, Superbooth, everyone seems to be bringing out analog synths, analog polys, an awful lot of them with poly aftertouch. You've brought this out now with a lot of companies bringing out these things. They're adding MPE and poly aftertouch to plugins. Yes, go, Andy. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, did anybody see Anthony Marinelli's video about using the Osmos and the Harken Continuum to control via MIDI to CV interfaces a whole bank of analog gear. I mean, I think it was 4 ARP 2600s and a Moog 3C from those synths with all the MIDI aftertouch, the polyphonic stuff, all sent out via CV converters into the modular. It was awesome. It was a beautiful video, and he was sitting there, he was going, I can't believe I'm getting sounds like this out of these machines. You know, it was really, really lovely. And if anyone's not seen it, then I do recommend watching it. He got a guy in who I think is a composer. I can't remember his name. I'm sorry, but he was obviously an expert in using the Harken Continuum and the Osmos for those real nuances. But to have it all sent out via MIDI into a bunch of quite complex MIDI to C converters, and then sent out into the modular gear, it was just joyous. It was like, oh my lord, this is it's fantastic. This is yeah. Well, and okay, and actually, in my own head, I was going, it sounds like a CS80, Kent. You know, but it was beautiful. It was really lovely.
And I was coming back to that, which is that of all of the early synths, you know, some of which did or did not have poly aftertouch.
Yeah.
The fact is, this was always built from the beginning with poly AT and that kind of control in mind. So this is one of the few plugins that's out there that has it added. It was built in from the beginning, so it was part of the design. You're not adding this in to do something clever. This was already built in, and you've just been following that path one step after the other, right?
That's been one of the great things about this. You know, with a lot of instruments, a lot of vintage instruments, we've had to add in velocity support, for example. We didn't have to add in anything. I think you can sync the LFO to your DAW's tempo. That might be just about the only change that we added that the original couldn't do.
Because perfectly reasonable change.
It had everything. It had velocity. It had poly aftertouch. It had arpeggiators and sequencers. It didn't need us to add anything other than the effects that come later in the chain, which are quite extensive.
Yeah, the effects, we didn't cover that. I'm just wondering if I should bring that back up quickly whilst we're here. Let me just see if I can do that. Let me stop that. Let me bring this up, share this entire screen, which is that one.
And it's another, you know, again, another great example of Mitchell working effects into an instrument in a way that just feels like they were always there to begin with.
So here's the effects section. If we come down to
doing the bottom one. Yeah.
There we go. So we've got distortion, phaser, flange and chorus, delay, with each of which there's lots of different types for each of these, and reverb. And then we have different modes, FXI. So let's just have a very quick look. So with distortion, we've got tube and fuzz with all sorts of different drive, tone and level. With the phaser, we've got up to an 8-stage phaser. Were you tempted to go up to 12 stage or 24 or any of that kind of stuff? Because there's a lot of those out there.
You can modulate a chroma so much that you don't need effects and you don't need a phaser, but of course, you know, a touch of phase can add a lot of beauty to patches. So we didn't want to overdo it with the effects.
Okay, and then with flange and chorus, again, we've got flange and chorus, and different amounts. I take it the difference between flange and chorus is just the amount of delay that's applied initially.
It is, and the delay time setting and the resonance, which is feedback, are disabled when you're in chorus mode, so it'll properly sound like a chorus.
Okay, and then with delay, we've got digital, tape, and ping pong. And I've played around with all of those. They are pretty good. I've got to say the tape one I really like. And sync to host tempo. So, and then lastly, reverb. And we've got a smattering of spring, plate, room, hall, and the eponymous galactic.
A couple of things we should mention about the effects. You probably noticed the effects button on the expander is grayed out right now, and the reason for that is because the effects can be either global for the entire instrument, which is what they're set to right now. If you look at the effects mode button down there, if you click on that effects mode button, the white one,
Just to the right
Oh,
of where you are.
there you
that
go.
one.
Click on that guy and put it in dual layer effects. Now the Chroma and the expander have their own independent effects sections. So you can completely independently set effects for each one. The other thing we should probably mention is for the hawk-eyed original Chroma people, the original Chroma had the 3 EQ sliders on the front panel, and we just didn't really have room for them, so we decided that was an effect anyway, and we put it on the effects page. But those are the equivalent of those 3 sliders that are on the original front panel.
So each
Right.
one of
And
these
they're
is a
modeled
separate.
after the Chroma's EQ sliders, which are not necessarily conventional EQ.
Again.
Everything
They're really
about
weird.
it.
Yeah.
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 Everything about this was odd.
Okay. I mean, I've enjoyed playing with it. I've just been blown away by the stories that people have told and the love that's being given to it with all the emails I've had in. People telling me, I had one of my suppliers got in touch just today to say that when he first started out, but he's got a voiceover studio now over in Cirencester, but when he first started out, I think he was based in London, and the first synth he got was a CS40, and the second thing he bought was a Chroma. He had to get a huge loan out, but it helped him build his business and his career, and he ended up owning, I think, 3 of them, 3 or 4 of them, something like that, and using them for years, and eventually selling the last one some time ago, regretfully. And when he saw this had come out, he said, "I'm going to be watching the show, and I'm going to be getting that. Thank you so much."
I don't know. I'm gonna-
Hi, if you're watching.
Yeah,
Our artist Mal, I think, owned 3 or 4 of them. There's something about Chromas. People collect them. No one can have just one. But honestly, I think the reason why people are so passionate about the Chroma, people who have owned them are so passionate about them, is that it was never an instrument that you could just sit down and use. You had to learn it. You had to devote a lot of time to it. And the more effort you put into it, the more you got out of it. Because to this day, you can discover things that you can do, self-generating patches, and all these things that are not immediately obvious from the front panel. So I think when people put that much effort into something, they kind of bond with it, and they get closer to the Chroma than they do with maybe other instruments because of that investment of time and energy and learning.
Yeah.
But everyone I've talked to that has owned a Chroma, just like you said, they all have stories. They all have stories about when they got it and what they paid for it, and where they found one and what they had to do to fix it. And I've got my own stories about mine, about all the work that we did to get them up and running. It's not a casual instrument. It's an instrument that really rewards time and patience and learning.
and then all the best do. And I think the fact that you shipped it with so many different presets, and what at first looks bemusing, you start to get a sense of the instrument and the layout once you start digging into some of the presets and see what they're doing and how they're working. So it's a great job. Well, listen, guys. I mean, we've taken up a lot of the show talking about this wonderful instrument. I hope everyone, by the way, goes out and gets one. If you are even slightly curious about the Chroma, you're really not going to be disappointed. You're really not. It's an astonishing beastie, and I've already been sort of playing around with it, and it's as you can see, I mean, two filter sweeps at the same time. It's a mad thing. It's a completely mad thing. But there are some other bits that I did want to try and cover. So here's the thing. Young Robbie is at Superbooth, and it's all happening there. There are about 1 billion different things being released at the moment by lots of different manufacturers. Really exciting stuff. But guess who's seeing them all in the flesh and or having them to show off? Young Robbie. So he's taking his camera with him. He's going to be uploading a load of stuff over the next week or so. When he gets back next week, I am sure we are going to talk all about Superbooth and about, you know, we know about the Polyboot 12. Everyone's going to want to know about that. And I think, I mean, I could put up something now, but guess what? I'm going to wait. I thought, in honour of young Mr. Brooks joining us, instead, I thought what I would do is pop this little beastie up. Where are we? There we go. And
I think I can guess what it is.
well, you've mentioned it already, so I'm going to add this to the stage. There we go, the Voltage Lab 2
Yeah,
from Pittsburgh
there we
Modular. So this is a bit of a beastie. You mentioned it earlier.
man.
Tell us what you know about it already, Andy.
Well, the Voltage Lab was something they released a few years ago, the original one, and it was smaller. It was only about sort of big 60, 70 HP wide, and it had all the synth bit at the top and a funny kind of controller thing at the bottom. And yeah, it never quite caught on because I think it was just too bloody weird. But this thing is absolutely awesome. If you look at the color scheme, it obviously relates back to things like the Tiger that they released and the Tiger keyboard and all the other bits. But it has almost like a linear heritage from that. And it's a very lovely analog, I think 3 oscillator analog synth, with wave folding. So it's East Coast and West Coast all combined into one machine. And the lower layer, the bit that you can see on this picture that you're showing now, Andrew, this is a controller. It's a sequencer with 3 channels, or you can set a channel to be controlling voltages to other things, and these little squares are keys that you can use to trigger off pitches that you define what those pitches are. I think I have to say because it's so complex, I don't really know, but it just sounds fantastic, and the level of control that you've got is wonderful. Yeah, mega gas for something like that. I haven't got room in here for it. I'd love to get rid of that and stick it on there. And
Power keyboard stand over the SH101.
yeah, I need a third tier, don't I, Mitchell? That's what I need, a third tier.
You need a whole wall.
Yeah.
That's what you need.
Yeah,
Spending
thank
some
you.
more money.
I agree.
Yeah, I just love it. I love it. I just think it's great. You know,
It reminds me, in some respects, of some of the Buchla stuff as well.
It's Moog and Buchla and all these different manufacturers all into one. You know, the lower half it's like the 960 sequencer, but with more. I don't know. I saw this and thought, oh my god, I just so want one of these. I'll never be able to afford one. But
Talking of affording, guess the price.
well, it's about £2,500.
£2,149.
Yeah, it's a big chunk. But there'll be people out there who go, I want it. You know, and it's not modular. It's semi-modular. So it's all
Semi-normal,
main-
but with breakout patching.
Thank you, Andrew. You've put it into sensible words that my tongue can't find right now.
So, Ken, is this something which would interest you?
I'm not allowed to buy anything. Remember? I have to get permission to go to the toilet on my own now. It's not good. Yeah, I like the idea of this. I do like the idea of this, but it probably wouldn't. It's not in my, it's not in my purview really.
There
But,
seem-
but Pittsburgh Modulars, I mean, that's a name that is normally associated with very good gear. So
And it seems to be a trend at the moment. Well, I say at the moment, of mixing East and West Coast synthesis technologies to give this hybrid. It's something which is happening a fair bit, and it seems to be.
And Pittsburgh
quite-
have been at the forefront of that.
yeah,
With the
Dan?
Tiger, amongst other things, they really have been at the forefront of that wave folding and a filter. I mean, I've got the little West Pest in my rack here from Create Audio, which Pittsburgh Audio basically made, and it's fantastic. It's for a little thing. It just sounds phenomenal because you've got those means of introducing weird harmonics, and then it goes through an interesting little filter. It's great. It's great stuff.
And Dan Mitchell, what's your thoughts on this? Any thoughts at all? Is this up your Strasser?
Oh, yeah, it looks beautiful. To me, it looks very Buchla inspired, and I think I could have a lot of fun with that for an afternoon. What do you think, Mitchell?
Whenever I see something like this, the tinkerer in me and the synth guy in me goes, "Oh, that looks so cool, and I really want this thing." But my fear with something like this, especially at that price, I guess, is that, and this is nobody else's problem but my own, but like in my mind, I make music that sounds like the Cars in ELO. So my fear is, I'm going to turn this thing on, and I'm going to go, and, and you just are going to do that over and over again. And Dan knows, I always say this, I never want to be that guy running the 8 or 16 step sequencer infinitely whilst turning the filter cutoff knob, or in this case, I guess the oscillator cross modulation knob. It's cool, but
Mitchell,
I always think, can I make a song?
Random generators. That's what they're for. Right, I've said my bit. I'm going over here now.
Yeah, like I said, Cars in ELO. So
yeah.
so that's my problem with it. But no, it looks supremely cool for that kind of thing. It's hard to not get excited about that. Yeah,
It is, and yeah, they've done a really good job with that. I have to say, it does tempt me. I'm kind of a bit in your camp, Mitchell, in that
yeah.
I'm going to be. People will want to string me up from the nearest lamppost when I say this, but I miss the fact.
I've been wanting to do that for years, Andrew, but don't tell anyone.
How very kind. It's the fact that it doesn't have additional interfaces built in, which I don't think it does. I don't think it has MIDI or USB-C, which means for me to interface it, if I don't have Euro Rack, I don't have it. So, and I kind of like to. This kind of thing would really turn me on a lot more if I had a way of accessing it via all of this without having to go and buy a whole bunch of other stuff.
This is an interesting can of worms, right? Because, look, I'm sure there's a way to get a CV into this one way or another and play it like a keyboard. But this comes down to, and I think about this stuff all the time with my designer hat, it comes down to the design makes you behave in a certain way, right? Like, you're not going to necessarily play it like it was a piano or a mini Moog because of what it is. You are going to go because that's what it's built to do. I'm sure you can coerce it into playing, Eleanor Rigby if you really want to.
No,
but
the thing is, I quite like that about it, though. I like that step way of working, and then being able to overlay stuff on top.
It's not
I
a
love
bad
that.
thing. Yeah,
I just want to be able to turn it on and plug it in with all my other gear straight away, and that's just me being.
I'm going to get grumpy any minute.
Go on.
I'm going to get really grumpy.
Uh-oh.
8-step sequences can be an absolute source of all sorts of things, but it depends what you chuck into them. And if you're triggering it with a gate that goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So if you send it with a different gate that goes and then you can change those gates so that it does something different, then you get different combinations. That's the beauty of it.
No,
Right, I've
you're
said my
not
bit.
wrong. You are not wrong. I'm just a simpleton.
So,
I am not telling you off, Mitchell. I am not telling you off. I
No,
promise.
you weren't wrong.
You are far
You
cleverer
are.
than me.
No.
well, and talking of such things, we are running a little low on time here, but there is one more. Talking of weirdness, that I really wanted to share because I'd be interested to get your thoughts on this. So, gentlemen and ladies, and all other persuasions of vertebrates or otherwise, there's this. So, some of you may have seen this.
Is it
and
real now?
Yeah, it's real.
Oh, wicked.
It's actually real. So they've got the phase 8, is it? Yeah, the phase 8. And it's based on a series of tuned tines. So think like Rhodes or any of those kinds of things, clavinet, tuned to what they say are specific frequencies, and they pluck them, or rather strike them, with an electronic hammer. That is to say, they throw a pulse. They induce a pulse into the resonator that makes it go boing, and then it cuts off. They can add filtering to it, or rather envelopes to it. They can add attack, they can increase the attack, or decay, by using a post-processing VCA that just diminishes it. They can also add the impulse so that it's constant, so that it is constantly on. I'm kind of interested, but everything I've heard so far has the same 8 notes because it's the same 8 resonators. And at that point, I kind of gone, it's very clever, but is this someone sitting in a pub going, I've got this brilliant idea for something. Let's spend billions of pounds and set up Cork Berlin to do 8 things going.
Are you doing an impersonation of me right now?
No, that's an
actually
impersonation
thinking-
of me. Later on, I get very bombastic.
Just checking.
So, but I will if you want. So, I mean, what are your thoughts, gents, on this? Because it's an odd. I can't. It's not ready yet, but I can't quite see how they're going to take it to something that I need to have in my life.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
I love that this exists. I've been following the development of this. I mean,
Yeah,
as someone
me too, Mitchell. Oh, sorry, Dan.
As someone that is just a fan of synthesizer technology in general, you have to love that this exists. I don't know what it's gonna sound like. I don't know what it's gonna do, but don't you want to play with it for a day? Don't you want to try it? I do.
Yeah,
Well,
for sure.
Do you think it's the precursor to like the phase 61 or 73 or whatever? Because if that was the case, that would make sense.
If that was the
Yeah.
case, that would definitely
right.
make case. That would definitely make sense. Ken,
Where's my rope?
you can't hang yourself again.
Oh, behave, Kent. Come on.
It's quirky, isn't it? It's just
I
so.
think it's brilliant.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where you can't think of a reason why it exists, but there's some sort of comfort to the fact that it does.
Yep. Ditto.
That I can't put my finger on, but it's sort of like, okay, they're thinking. They're looking down different ways. Who knows where the hell that could lead? I mean,
Which
if-
other
if any
Japanese
of our-
manufacturers are doing things like this?
Well, exactly. I
know,
mean, when me and
None.
Fiona
Roland and
brainstorm-
Yamaha, they're all doing boring stuff.
Yeah,
and,
when
actually
me and
Korg
Fiona
are going
did
out
some
on a limb.
brainstorming, you
Excellent.
wouldn't believe some of the things that have come out of our mouths about what we could actually develop. And
I can imagine.
yeah, now sometimes the next day you go, do you know what? That ain't such a bad idea.
Do you know what? Yeah.
Yeah. But of course, it turned out, they still are bad ideas. But yeah, so it's just, there's something sort of like, let's sniff around rather than bring out something that's like 30 other things that have been out in the last 2 years. They're looking around, trying out.
I think I'm just puzzled at the moment by the fact that they're showing it at this stage. I I think, was it Dan or Mitchell said 61 keys or 71 keys?
Yeah.
Then it starts to, I mean, it really makes sense then. It's a completely new way of doing something like pianos, electric pianos, synthesis by adding the electronics on the back of it. That becomes very interesting. But there's no sense that that's where they're going with it at the moment. And
I think they're trying to get the electronics to work.
I
And they're
this could
getting
simply-
feedback on whether it works or not.
This could simply be marketing dipping the toe in the water.
Could be.
Just see
Could be.
see what
It's like
people say.
It's like the synthy hi-fi of electric pianos.
Yeah, yeah, or
Yeah,
or,
it's
or
an
the
obscure reference.
polysynthy, the polysynthy of string synthesizers.
Ouch.
Yeah, but there again, it might not be. Some people might actually go nuts for it.
Yeah, I think it could be
Has
cool.
anything like this ever been mass produced by a company this big?
I think so.
I mean, I've seen little,
No,
I've
no.
seen experimental things that people have built, but for
Yeah,
this to be a-
CS80 by Yamaha, Dan.
which one?
Sorry.
CSA. Yeah. Not a lot of vibrating mechanical parts unless your
Well.
transformer is failing.
Yeah, true.
I guess that
Roads,
possibility.
full stop.
Yeah, or the clavinet, which
Desktop
is
Wurlitzer.
Oh, true. Yeah, Hona.
And just one last thing, because we're here and we can, and we mentioned it earlier. And this is again for you, Mr. Brooks.
Oh, for me? Oh, wow. Oh, what a special treat. Oh, that. Oh, wow, what a thing. Oh, my God. 13,000 quid. I would love it. Absolutely love it. Yeah, I watched Sonic State's interview with AJH chap, Alan Hill. Is it Alan Hill? Oh, and
Alan
it's
Hale was
just...
on Gilligan's Island, right?
Oh,
He was
I've got the name wrong.
skipper.
Whichever, it's a. I mean, it's just a beautiful thing. Wow, what a thing! I mean, AJH have been at the forefront of pure analog Eurorack for a long time, and I wish I could afford their stuff, but at the moment, I can't. I just can't. 250 quid for an oscillator. It's like, oh my God. But it's amazing, and if I win the lottery this weekend, I'll put my name down on the list for one of those, because that is just a beautiful, beautiful thing.
I think what's lovely about it, particularly lovely, is it's been built for the Maida Vale
Yes,
Studios,
it has,
which
yeah,
was the home
for the
of
Radiophonic Workshop.
the Radiophonic Workshop, which Hans has taken over and saved from an ignominious turn it into a.
That's a
pond
wonderful
that's
story
deaf.
in itself, isn't it?
It is.
I'm sure there'll be plenty more information
And
about
if
that.
out of this, along with some other things that he's been involved with recently, including a 6 oscillator mini Moog plugin, which is it's a very odd thing, but listen, he loves it. He's doing something really really good to bring back and revive that whole synthesis thing, which was right at the heart of the BBC, Radiophonic Workshop, and everything we all got brought up on. Doctor Who, Elicious kind of thing. So I'm really pleased
The
about
original machine that AJH built is actually already in Hans's hands, and I believe ready to go into place in the new Radiophonic Workshop. So the everyone that's available from now on for order will have a serial number, but the one that they originally built will be in Meadowvale, which is a lovely thing in itself, I think.
It's a great thing. It's a bit of history. It's a wonderful thing, and to be announced. Here's the thing: we know there's lots of stuff we get to talk about today, but we've talked about some really, really good, cool legacy wonderfulness that's now become available. We've got the Chroma, and I still can't get over just how freaking gorgeous and madly brilliant it is.
Well done,
and
guys.
We've got really well done, and love the fact you're doing this. You're giving the 5% of the revenue for the month of May to Dina's Alan R. Perlman Foundation. They do a great job. We support them too. And then you're doing this other bundle, which is what's the name of the organisation it's supporting again?
Humble Bundle, the Music
Humble
Creators
Bundle. Yeah,
Studio
cool.
Essentials Software Bundle at humblebundle.com.
There we go.
Yeah. Well done, Ben.
Yeah, well done. So listen, we've got to the end of the show near us, damn it. We've got a couple of little things to just quickly go through. We need to say goodbye to everyone bit by bit. But before we do the good night, Jim, good night, Bob, Kent and Andrew, are there any events happening over the weekend or tonight, whatever? What else is happening?
I have nothing over the weekend. Grace and I have got a couple of gigs coming up later on in the summer. But other than that, we just keep doing our stuff for hardware jams when we can actually get together, because Grace is actually out on tour right now with Paolo Nutini and doing the summer festival. So she's here occasionally and then away and then back again. So we meet up when we can to do stuff for that, which is always a pleasure. But other than that, I'm in here and I'm trying to learn my modular system. Sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? But
you need a Chroma. You need a Chroma plugin. That's what you need.
Yeah, I probably do. But
Yeah,
I also
that's probably
need
what you
time
need.
to sit down with some of the new things that I've got in here and just take time to learn what they actually really do.
And a Chroma plugin.
And a Chroma plugin.
Ken, anything else? Anything going on? Are there any other shows? Are you doing a pub this weekend? Are there other people?
Well, we've got a synchrotron in the morning, 7 we at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
We do.
Which is basically
I'm sorry, Andy, I'll be getting my hair cut, so I'll miss you again.
yeah, that's the equivalent
Sorry,
of
Andy.
having a massage in a bath of honey being glittered with butterflies, and that goes on for a couple of hours, which is great. We got Ramsey, 2 o'clock, haven't we?
Yes, we have.
On Saturday. We've still got no Jamie, have we, for Sundays?
No, Jamie's still just taking a step
Yeah.
out of it.
There may very, very well be the PSN After Dark pub on Saturday nights, where we will discuss all the things that
Knitting.
you're not allowed. Yeah, all the things you're not allowed to discuss.
How to make a bolognese.
Yeah. Or
shining your alloys with the right alloy
I
wax.
was thinking about actually making a video using an Osmos. Yeah, I'm going to title the video "How to Stop a Mustang with a Broken Handbrake Cable from Running Off Your Driveway."
You don't like that. So listen, before we get to, we're now almost at 9 o'clock. Gentlemen, Dan and Mitchell. Mitchell, let's start with you. Have you got any plans for the weekend aside from unpacking?
Nothing musical, so I don't know if I really want to share it because it's boring.
Whatever it is, tell us.
Okay, just moved into a 52-year-old house, so I'm building a stairway outside of this little balcony I have for my dog, so my dog can go outside and poo-poo.
Woo!
How exciting is that?
You just
sensible,
you
Mitchell.
Rock it. You rock
Yeah.
it. And Dan, can you compete with that level of?
Yeah, we're actually having next week. We're having a Cherry Audio Company retreat. We're getting everyone together for the first time since well before the pandemic, and that's actually kind of exciting because we have people that are part of our team that we've never ever actually met in person, and so we're going to get together and have a little fun and do some brainstorming and talk about the future. And I'm going to pack. That's my plan for the weekend. I'm going to pack.
And where's
Sounds
our
good.
invite? Where's
Hey, you're welcome.
You don't work with Cherry Audio, Andrew.
We're
Ken,
meeting
Ken,
in
did you get an
California.
invite?
Come on.
Kent, did you get an invite? Kent?
come hang
Yeah,
out with
but
us.
that's because I knew I couldn't go.
And it's my birthday on Sunday, which I
By the
only
way,
mentioned
Mitchell,
once
two
before.
words for you,
Happy
mate.
birthday to
Two
you
words for
for
you, Mitchell.
Sunday.
My
diaper.
birthday is in, what, a week? It's the 24th.
Oh, well, we could get together at the retreat when I get my invite, which I know.
There you go.
Gentlemen, you know what? That has been a show. Thank you so much for coming on and putting up with the blether that was coming from this part of the room. And a delight, as always, to have you on. I can't wait. So listen, I've got to ask you, what's the next big thing you can tell us? No one else will hear.
You know, we can't talk about it, but
Dog diapers.
we've got big things
Stuff.
coming.
Always unexpected. Always something unexpected.
Oh,
Yeah.
now you've got me.
Possibly a
Yeah. Thank you, though. Thank you, Andrea. You guys have all been so supportive and great, and I really mean it. It's really been helpful.
Where's
We
the
really
invite?
appreciate it.
Where's the cake for Sunday? Where is it?
I don't know. Not up to
I
date.
used to like these guys. Honestly, I did once. Gentlemen, it's been an honor. It's been wonderful having you here. Thank you so much for sharing your insights to this great thing. Guys, go and buy the Cherry Expander. If you haven't already, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe the hell out of this wonderful channel. Keep the thing running. Hopefully by the time Robbie gets back next week, we will have a plethora, a cornucopia of loveliness to show you, because Robbie's going to have been seeing it all, and I'm sure we'll be gasping with excitement. So, and on that note, I think the only thing that's really left for me to do is to ask everyone to say good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
Who the hell is Jim Bob?
It's the Waltons.
Oh, I never
Oh,
watched this.
man. He is
Oh,
old,
come
isn't
on.
he?
God.
Even
Good
I'm
night,
too-
Jim Bob.
Yeah.
I was
even I'm too
watching the
young
$6
to
million
remember that.
man on the other side.
Oh, Jesus, well, this is painful. We're all going now. Have a great weekend, one and all. Thank you for watching.
Take care.
We'll see you soon. Bye.
Good night.
Long